Live from the Washington, D.C. area, all empowered citizens need to know about intelligent use of resources, smart governance, inclusive communities, smart industry, and healthy, thriving urbanization. This is Smart Sustainability, the TV talk about shaping a sustainable future in the digital age with Nicolette DeVidar. Welcome to Smart Sustainability. America conjures an image of pioneering new frontiers, risk-taking, freedom, and liberty. Entrepreneurial spirit comes to mind, along with self-made millionaires and anyone can make it. At least that's what the image that the United States had among many people around the world. Doing what you wanted to do and being successful at it no matter how old you were or where you came from. But the entrepreneurial spirit has been eroded in the past 4 decades. So I want to dive in tonight to talk about the correlation of the loss of entrepreneurial spirit with the loss of freedom in societies, if there is a correlation. Our topic tonight. Good evening. Thanks for joining me. I'm Nicolette DeVidar. When people come to America, the great success stories are always those where we hear about people who made it. Whether that's Lillian Vernon a while back, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Heidi Klum, Robert Kiyosaki, and many others. The idea was always that if you wanted to achieve something beyond your wildest dreams, you would go to America. There's no better place for it. The country where entrepreneurship, doing something in freedom, was writ large and honored and encouraged across society, where people would cheer you on and use your success as an inspiration versus jealousy, pettiness, bureaucrats, and restrictions that you'd face in so many other countries. The question, though, is this still true today? And what are the implications of it? When we look at entrepreneurship numbers since 1975 to now, the number of free entrepreneurs in this country consistently shrunk. Between 1985 and 2014, the share of entrepreneurs in households declined by half, according to the Congressional Budget Office. Now, some people, like Sergio Salgado, a finance professor from Wharton, say, so what? It's not really a concern. The decrease is real, but many graduates forego their own business because they can earn more money in well-paying jobs than starting their own businesses. Cheaper capital helps business become more profitable, and higher skills workers adds to that. True. But there are other implications that I think are now coming more and more to the forefront, and which hits us in a way in the soul of America. See, America was founded by pioneers, risk-takers, people with a drive to achieve the impossible and realize, most above all, their dream of freedom, peace, and liberties. It's the beating heart of America, ingrained in its soul. To do this requires certain characteristics. Risk-taking, for example, is a very different component than thinking in terms of safety. Pioneering is as a quality of self-actualization, very different to having a 5 to 6 job, doing what others want and not what you want. Entrepreneurship has higher risks, but it also has a higher happiness ratio because you do what comes from your heart versus doing someone else's bit. It makes a difference. In February this year, Gallup did a poll that indicated that American happiness hit record lows. 68% said they were discontent with the size and power of federal government, and 74% said the size and influence of large corporations were a major reason for their unhappiness or their negative future outlook. So if that's the case, then ask yourself the question, what are you doing to get to your happiness and find a solution to what you don't like? Happiness and self-actualization are closely linked. But how do they influence society as a whole? In linguistic terms, interestingly, we talk of entrepreneurial spirit or pioneering spirit, but we never talk about bureaucratic spirit or corporate spirit because there is no such thing. And the spirit, seems to me, is exactly what has gone missing in the past few years. Particularly, we see it in depression rates, suicide rates, and mental and emotional health issues. So I want to talk tonight about refinding the entrepreneurial spirit. What is it? How can you tap into it? What do we need to leave behind? And how immigrants, and very often immigrant women, can help with that. Joining me tonight is Sonia Kermi, an entrepreneur who's currently working in a B corporation, and she will tell you what that is, kind of the mixing of purpose as well as still keeping your freedom and your ability to earn. And we also have Peter Rotnikov, a serial entrepreneur and a crypto enthusiast, so he has entrepreneuring in his blood and can talk a lot about how to make money nowadays in crypto. Welcome both of you in Smart Sustainability. Great to have you on. Can you hear me, both of you?
Great to be here.
Thank you. Great to be here. Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so let me start out with the obvious. Sonia and Peter, you actually both come from an interesting background. So you've not been in the your ancestors were not in the United States. And when you came here, so you both opted to actually have your own businesses. So you're both sort of coming as immigrant or as descendants of immigrants not too long ago, I might add. And so you both started your own business. Why did you become an entrepreneur? Sonia, you want to go first?
Thank you. Yes. Age before beauty, right? So I grew up in a very typical middle-class family, but my family being of Ukrainian background, our culture was very, very important to us, but I did everything I was supposed to do. I went to school, I went to college, and then I got a job. I got out and decided that I was going to, be very happy in a job. And very quickly, I realized that it wasn't for me. I felt that I could do better on my own. Oftentimes it was because I thought I knew better. I had a hard time taking direction, always have and always will. And also I had my boss actually that I worked for a number of years here where at home. She was an amazing mentor, and I saw in her a strength that I felt that I could emulate. And she taught me to like the finer things in life, to work very hard, and that I deserved a lot more. And so that kind of propelled me off onto my own. And so at 28, I became an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So when you talk about you deserved more, what do you mean by that? More than versus being in a corporation, more than working for someone else? What's the deserve more part?
What's the deserve more part? It's realizing that there was a lot of things that I wanted in life that I knew I wasn't going to be able to attain if I worked for somebody else, because ultimately when you work for somebody else, you're making your boss wealthy and not yourself. And I just felt that I had the know-how and the strength to do it on my own, to take the risk, to get out there and do what what ultimately I wanted to do, which was to be my own boss.
Yeah, I find this very interesting because I really think in terms of, you deserve more. Very often, I think most of us nowadays would kind of come from a place and say they think in terms of safety, security, and how much can they earn, but they start seeing it sort of like limiting risk versus seeing like really from the point of deserving more. Mm-hmm. And I find that's a really, really interesting element, which brings me actually right away to Peter, and wanted to ask Peter, so when you've obviously been a serial entrepreneur as well. Walk us through exactly why did you start your business and when did you start your first business?
So when I started working was actually at 11 years old. For the younger people, there used to be things called newspapers and people got them delivered to their houses. So I was the kid on Saturdays and Sundays that would wake up at 5 a.m. and deliver the newspapers. By the age of 12, I was able to, one of the first things I bought myself was a CD burner. And that was discs were the way people listen to music before streaming. So I was making these CDs for friends and they were costing me $1.50 and 25 cents. I would put a label on it. I was putting some care into it. So I was making about $3.25 per CD. Mm-hmm. Making it for friends, but realizing working for $5.50 an hour or so minimum wage back then, mm-hmm. you appreciate $3 just for sitting at home and clicking buttons. Then I had a great idea of I'm already doing a newspaper route. I have all the keys in the neighborhood. Why don't I have access to where the people placed ads? People before internet used to put pieces of paper up as advertisements with their phone numbers on ripped pieces of paper. That's how I would get a hold of someone. So I started plastering them in every building in my neighborhood, and I was charging $10 for strangers because I felt like kind of guilty as a young entrepreneur taking too much profit from friends. But
Right.
like a stranger, I had no problem. It was more work. I was downloading different kind of music I didn't have on my desktop, laptop, computer. Well, it was desktop at the time. So that was a big profit to me. All of a sudden, now I'm making $8.25. And I started to realize really young that, wow, like I still worked for 2 years on that paper route. I never quit, even though I started making money other ways. Got into sales. By the time I quit that job, it's because I got another job, which was a sales job. Got really good at the sales job and pretty much just knocking door to door on people's doors and getting my door slammed on my face, right?
Well, you got enough practice when you
Selling,
carried the
household
newspapers,
products.
right?
And the year later, I diversified knocking door to door to something more profitable. But then something came across me and I decided to open a company that was similar to the one I worked for originally. And I was about 15 years old. So I had to hire teenagers that were 17, 18 that were able to drive because I legally wasn't allowed to drive. I had a minivan and I trained a bunch of kids in my neighborhood to go sell these household products door to door in these wealthy areas because I grew up in a more like the inner city. So all of a sudden, I probably made 50K at 15 years old, started making six figures from 16 years old on. So it's very difficult to take school seriously when you start making more cash flow than your teachers. So from a young age, I seen that, and I still did construction jobs, and like sometimes you gotta supplement the business. There's ups and downs. So it's not like I was against working, but especially working as a teenager and having businesses, I seen very young that, you know what, if you have the choice, it's much better to do a business. It's on your terms. You can leverage yourself. You can make a lot more. You're not fixed to one flat rate, and it just gives you more of your own energy back for yourself because you're doing things for yourself and on your terms.
You were very young, though, when you discovered that, and I guess this has a lot to do with the fact that you already produced a success at, at young age. Were there failures along the way, too, where you would consider, I mean, every entrepreneur has some failures along the way, so where you would say, okay, I'm going to pull through that, and I'm not going to be deterred by that?
Of course, like at the age of, I think, like 13, before I started making the bigger money, I don't know, maybe even 12, 13, I had a lot of bad investments in my life. I thought that Beanie Babies, they made these little toys called Beanie Babies, and they had books saying that 5, 10 years later, they would be worth 10, 100 times my money. And I would like work hard and do my side, whatever businesses, make my profit, and then go buy these Beanie Babies. And this is before I had the corporation. This is when I was working a lot harder for everything. And I probably spent like half of all the money I earned for a year stretch buying these Beanie Babies. So that's not a failed entrepreneur experience, but as an entrepreneur, even if things are going well, you're gonna make lots of mistakes, right? That's just part of it. You fail your way to success. It's not like it just happened. And there's times where like your business is losing money and you have to realize, is it you? Is it your product? Is it the people you have working for you, right? So it's definitely like going back now in the memory banks, it seems like most of it was positive, but in the moments, there's definitely tons of ups, downs, and points of even wanting to quit because of the frustration of what was going on periods where the finances aren't coming. Like, again, you have to figure it out. It's trial and error. There's nobody that goes into business and just succeeds the whole way. And if they do, it's unheard of, uncommon, and that probably won't be a pleasant person to be around because most people fail their way, humble themselves, and that's how they become a better person. Because I don't believe no athlete, no musician, no entrepreneur just has a straight line up. It's more like ziggity sideways. If you stay long enough, it goes up.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of insight and reflection, so it automatically always throws you back to yourself in a way, which I think very often in a corporate world, you don't have that. But Peter, you went on later on and worked in a corporate for a while, right?
No, I did the opportunities because I was good at sales. So I did take positions that were high paying, but I never lasted more than weeks or months. I ended up settling on in my 20s because I never found a home. I thought the success I had as a teenager would equate to automatically millions of dollars in my 20s, but that wasn't the case, right? At the age I started, no one I knew in my age demographic was making anywhere near me. Back then, there wasn't internet, there wasn't young influencers, right? So the first time I started seeing people around me make more technical money than me were like professional athletes. Now I'm 19, 20, 21, and there's people my age making millions to play a sport. So that's when I started realizing, okay, like maybe I'm not this special being that's gonna have things given to me. I actually have to like figure something out. And that's why I tend to do different jobs, went to university for 3 semesters, played a couple football seasons there, and I just find myself. So I ended up realizing when I do financially well, I enjoy it in nightclubs and party scenarios. So then I started an entertainment company, which led to me DJing because of the failures I had with bad DJs not showing up, not playing what they were supposed to, not having things work, not listening. And then I had a team of DJs, a sound crew, and I did that professionally for many, many years till I transitioned down the road to cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, which is what I do full time now.
So that's what you do today, right?
Correct.
You're in crypto. So that's quite a journey. But then you've actually never really sort of, when we spoke originally, you said you came to a point where you figured out the corporate world is just not for me.
Yeah, but I meant that in the sense of like, I had lots of friends working in the corporate world for a year or two after graduating their university degrees, and I would get some jobs at times in there, but it was only a couple of those experiences I had. And I even worked with the state in a volunteer setting with a potential job offering, but the government didn't feel right to me. The corporation, there was a lack of love or a lack of, it wasn't even the transparency at the time. I just think it was too structural for a free spirit like me to go in there and just follow all these rules when a lot of them didn't make sense to me. Like if it all made sense, like if a coach that you're a personal trainer is training you and everything they do makes sense, it's easy to do the workout. But if they start telling you to do things that are hurting your body or not logically, like that's how I felt in the corporate and in the state world. It was just, they were asking to do things that made no sense. And me as an entrepreneur that always used logic to get ahead, I never really connected.
Were you never afraid that you'd be out of money or you would fail or that wouldn't pan out?
Well, the thing is, I think what later on, before I got to spirituality, there's a lot of ego involved, especially as a man growing up in business. So people, because I was making good money and employing people in my neighborhood at times, people just assumed when I had $10,000, people thought I had $100,000. When I got my first $100,000, people thought I had $1 million. When I got my first $1 million, people think I have hundreds of millions of dollars, right? So if you play that game of living up to that expectation, that's where it gets really difficult. But I've learned through my ups and downs, because I've had many downs, even though there's cash is coming in, things happen in life, emergency expenses, bad investments, there's ways you can lose lots of wealth and your business can be struggling at the same time. So my thing is, when I'm doing very well, cash flow is very important to me. I'm good with numbers and I understand that I need to spend less than I make. But when you're making a lot, you don't really have to worry about that. But as soon as your business starts not doing as well, you have to have the discipline to lower the expenses. That means you have to stop going to restaurants or make payment arrangements for bills you can't afford in the moment to keep your business going. You start learning things like that, being okay, there's times to live as however you choose to when the finances are good, but when the times aren't always as good, you have to adapt and switch your lifestyle or your business plan or the numbers. Maybe you have to fire someone and start doing the job yourself. If you're a solopreneur, maybe that just means you got to switch your marketing initiative or find a new demographic, or maybe there's something changed in the market with the product or service that you're dealing with. There's a lot of adaptability, but I think it's the discipline of knowing when the time is right to humble yourself and not live up to other people's expectations just because you're an entrepreneur. Just because the last 10 times or 50 times you paid for dinner for everyone, maybe right now in the business situation you're in, you don't have to pay for the dinner. And people might look at you weird, well, if you paid for the last 20 dinners, I think you're probably owed a dinner or two anyway, right? So these are the little things as an entrepreneur that don't get caught up if you have your first taste of success. I think that you have to now live up to these standards at all times.
Yeah, you do. Now let me ask you. So let me ask you, and that question actually gets to both of you because you both come from an immigrant background. And Peter, were you actually born in Russia or born in Canada?
Yeah, I was born in Moscow, but I came here at 3 years old. So I consider myself very Canadian by culture, even though I still speak fluently and I spent time there. But do you think for both of you, actually, that question is valid? Do you think that a lot of your drive and your ambition and your free spirit in a way, it has been influenced by your parents or your grandparents growing up in countries where there was not that freedom to do that?
I would say just the opposite. I mean, I grew up with parents that struggled and, maintained a lifestyle that they were expected to have. And I from very early on, I knew that wasn't the lifestyle I wanted. I wanted to be, the jet setter. I wanted to have, things that my parents never could afford.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. So it influences how you grow up. So if your parents grow up in a society where it's very structured, very rigid, very according to plan, very often kids rebel and do exactly the opposite. They become the free spirits. They do something that because they see what they don't want versus what they do want. So that's why I'm thinking that, I think when people come particularly from other countries, there is a lot they can actually bring to the table that adds to this whole idea of making it an entrepreneurial spirit in North America.
Yeah, for myself personally, I find that 100% it's in part of your environment as well. Both my parents worked and had businesses at times. And so as a kid, that's why as a teenager, I probably had that mentality of let me have my businesses, but work as well, just because that's what I grew up around. But what I did realize, especially getting older, is even when my parents they were separated, but even they were failing in their business, they were much happier than when they were at the job. So even when business wasn't going good, they had a different energy, a different flame, a different kind of optimism about them, that even when the job paycheck was coming in consistently, it was more of a monotone kind of energy, and you felt that lack of, you missed something about your mom or your dad. So that's what I really was grateful for, to see how important it was, and where they come from was so important to have a stable job and based on the culture that they came from. So that's why they always felt they needed that. But now both of them are full-time entrepreneurs for the last couple of decades. Yeah. At the time of when I was still young, English was their second language. They were figuring it out. So they had to take jobs, pay rent, put food on the table. They had a kid, right? So it was really cool for me to grow up to see kind of both sides of it. And then to make a decision for myself, right? Where I understand most people have usually an extreme one way or the other. And I was kind of blessed to kind of see both of it and make a decision for myself.
Yeah, I like that approach particularly because given that we live today in an environment where you have, as I said in my intro also, that you have a lot of young people who become graduates, and then their first line of thinking is first they go to a major corporation because they think this is sort of their better opportunity versus actually saying, we take the risk and do that. So I think that's a really big difference to actually show, wait a minute here, there is more to this whole idea of entrepreneurship, to entrepreneurial spirit, to actually bringing this energy to it. So, Peter, I'm going to call you back here for a second because you talked about the energy of your parents. In terms of how did you actually pick up, could you describe that energy that was different when they were entrepreneurs than when they were working for someone? If you had like 3 adjectives, what would it be?
Well, for one, I would say the first most clear one was it was more accepting. Like I seen them less when they were working, and I felt like I was the only child. So it was kind of like I'm just sitting at home, I have the TV, or like it was very much more lonely. But anytime they did their businesses, they're going to some kind of trade show or going to some kind of different event or conference, or they're doing something that's different. As a kid, you don't realize it, but that's really cool and really fun. You get to be with them and part of it, where of course, most of these corporate structures don't want you to bring the kids to work with you, right? And if you do, they're just sitting there while you're on the computer most of the time. So to actually go on to see hands-on interaction, I think that's when I see them happier. They would see their friends, they would be sharing their passions about this new thing that they're working on. Whereas like when they see their friends, it's like, oh, like catching up on family and basic time, which happens anyway. But I mean, it was missing that extra like energy, as we said. And back then I didn't know how to use these words to explain it. But now as an older person, I'm like understanding, wow, like how important that was and how much that formed my foundation.
Yeah. Sonia, when we talk about this energy, would you capture it or describe it the same way? Is it a different energy for you as well?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's a mindset that, you know that you have something in you that you can make more of your life. Definitely. I mean, if you didn't have the energy to aspire to anything else, you'll end up in a corporate job for the rest of your life and working away and coming home and having this comfortable life. But when you have this energy and this desire for more, it comes out. that way by just, saying, okay, fine. Like I said, I deserve more. I know I deserve more. I know that there are things that I want that I'm only going to be able to get if I do it myself. And that's what I did.
Now, do you see the similarity with many immigrants that come in here? Because when you look at the statistics, for example, if you look at a lot of women, particularly a lot of women immigrants who come here become entrepreneurs. For different reasons. There are different reasons. Some are because it's really hard to find your way in the job market, but then there are many others I've talked to who say exactly what you say. They say, I wanted to make more of myself.
Exactly. And think about it. Somebody that comes, that leaves their home, that leaves their country, that leaves their family. Think about the energy and the drive and determination just to do that, like to come over oftentimes on their own, or maybe with a family, maybe with no family at all. There alone is that strength that, when they get here, they've already shown how strong they are. They can do it. They can then decide that, I can continue to do this, and I continue to do things for myself and survive and to take care of myself.
Yeah, because I think that's actually a point that very often gets forgotten, what it takes to actually leave everything behind and go to a new country, put down new roots, start with nothing, or even if you have something, you still have to build your environment, your whole, a new life for yourself. And it's very different in a different country, different language, different rules, different regulations. I think that's a really, really good point in terms of what
exactly. Think of the risk they take.
Exactly.
Think of the risk they've already taken. So they're used to, putting themselves out there, to putting themselves, walking out on that skinny branch and saying, I can do this and I have to do this. Yes.
Yeah, and I think that really goes right back to the heart of America when you think about it. America was a country of immigrants. So people who came here had exactly that drive, that leaving everything behind, that pioneering spirit, that putting your roots down, this risk-taking, this, yes, we're going to do this. And they had no way of returning, or practically no way of returning. So that's exactly it. So it's the whole spirit of the country. But somehow in the last 4 decades, we kind of either mellowed in or it just got lost for different reasons, which I think is really kind of very interesting, because when we talk about immigrants, particularly in most cases, there's nowadays particularly, it's been very politicized. And so a lot of it kind of gets lost, but there's also a tremendous amount of this actual, I would almost call it like replenishing this entrepreneurial spirit that comes in through immigrants through other countries. People who come from other countries who bring that to the table. Would you agree with that?
Very much so. Very, very much so, yeah.
Yeah, Peter, what about you?
So yeah, I think, of course, having to go through a struggle like that, come to a new place. But for the people that are not in that situation, or maybe in a very bad place now, we have something called the internet now. We're doing this Zoom call over the internet, and this is opening more opportunities, even if it's to get you in a little bit of a better place, and then you can get yourself to maybe a nation or a country that's more friendly towards entrepreneurship. But now is the time of anyone could take action, right? It doesn't cost you anything but your time. And if you're not a wealthy person financially, you definitely have time. Usually people have one or the other. The people that have both are very fortunate. So for the people that have time, there's the new field that we'll talk about a little bit later when it comes to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Internet, influencers, these things weren't an option once upon a time. And now entrepreneurship has gone accessible a lot more to the masses. It's not this little tribe and this little niche you have to join and go to business school and find out. No, you can just start doing what you love, find unique ways of documenting it, and keep putting it out there. If it's not getting attention, find a way to document it and make sure you're doing what you love. And if you stay consistent on that, something will end up opening a door, an opportunity, a person you'll meet. Maybe it's not even in what you thought it would be, but like doing something that you're passionate about consistently and finding unique ways that just cost you time and not money. So just your energy you have current one way or another. Use it, build something, fail. Build another thing. If it takes you 5 times, no problem.
Exactly. Let's talk a little bit about some of these opportunities that we have today. So when we look at you, Peter, so you're a crypto enthusiast. Why did you choose crypto?
Well, so I'm going to go back to the understanding at an early age of about when I started working and doing these little small businesses as a preteen. By the age of 13, I was making VHS copies. It was like a cassette tape. It's a way of like sharing information before DVDs, before streaming. So I was making cassette tapes explaining to people that we have a debt-based monetary system, meaning that all the money that's created that we use is owed with interest. So this is a losing system for the average person. So I was looking to educate people on this from a very young age. But as a positive guy that got good at sales, good at business, no one really wanted to hear about it. And I thought, okay, maybe I'm just young. By 17, 18, I kind of stopped talking about it. I was very aware. Like, for example, George Bush was the first president that single-handedly doubled the US debt in 2 terms. So whatever it took like almost 200 years of debt to accumulate, he doubled it. And the president right after him, Barack Obama, doubled it again. And then it keeps going on. So this is something I was aware of from very young. And I would bring up conversations like that and people just weren't interested. So I said, you know what? It is what it is. And I'll find my way to enjoy life. So when Bitcoin came across my lap, this was actually an alternative, another option to use something that's not debt-based, that's mathematically based and fair and transparent, and anyone can use without having to ask permission from anybody else. So when I seen this, I was like, wow, this is like too good to be true. I shut down, it was January, luckily, when I decided to research it. So businesses are usually slower then, it's winter. So I took 3 weeks, cleared my schedule, barely slept, had bad eating habits. I was just staring at screens, reading every article, watching everything I could, figuring out, is this a real viable option? Or is this some kind of new modern scam? And I had to figure it out for myself. And yeah, it took me about 3 weeks of someone that was educated in the monetary system. And I was in my mid to later 20s when I got involved in crypto. So it's like I was very aware, and it still took me a while to actually get to the root of, wow, this is real, it's here to stay. And now I've been in the space 7 years and full-time over 5 years.
So you've been in crypto for 7 years?
Yeah, I got in December 2014. By like February 2015, I was mining, staking, trading. By the end of that year, I started public speaking on it. So I've been involved in the space very actively right away, because I seen it was a way to empower the average person on the planet. Just like before the internet, you couldn't really communicate with someone. You go on a vacation, connect with someone in Jamaica or in Australia, doesn't matter, Japan, and what are you gonna mail each other mail? Like, that's not very efficient. I guess you could, postcards are cute, but that's not gonna be a genuine relationship. So after email, now that we have streaming, internet brought us ways of communicating with each other, which is awesome. But right now, if I have this great genuine connection with someone I met, let's say, let's keep the Jamaica theme, and they're making some kind of fidget in their house that I think is really cool, and I want to support them at times. Well, besides being there physically, it's very difficult. The banking system, whether you're in America, whether you're in Mexico or Canada, and you want to work with a Jamaican banking system, go try to send $5 or 50 cents. It's pretty much impossible. And if you can, you're going to be paying $30, $40 to send this $5. So it's an inefficient model. But if you could just send someone that only makes a few dollars a day or just needs that extra few dollars, now with this technology, we can do that. It's another way for us to communicate and help each other, whether it be through business, through giving. It's another form of expression without asking permission. So we started with the internet, and now we have a currency for the internet, for the people, that anyone could just use without any interference.
But does it take a special mindset for that? Because as you said, for example, you were very young when you discovered that the banking system is a debt system, and that's kind of like really not very great for creating wealth. So you picked up on that early. When you look at who's going into crypto, for example, particularly, I know it's very popular, particularly among younger demographics, but would you say for someone to get into this, you need a specific mindset for that, or a specific strength in numbers or in mathematics or logic, or none of it?
So I think to become any kind of investor, so an investor is a little bit different than an entrepreneur. There's some entrepreneurs that do very well financially, but that doesn't necessarily make them a good investor. Maybe they're good with, maybe they're not even that good with numbers. Maybe they have someone they hire to do the numbers, and they're good at sales or the service they provide or whatever the detail is. Right? So being a successful entrepreneur doesn't necessarily make you a good investor. And at the same time, someone could be an employee that is not much of an entrepreneur, but has an investing mentality. So I think investing is its own mindset, but I think you got to treat this as a technology. So if you are an investor already, if you already have that mindset, for you to not diversify to one of the most modern technologies that are available to us would be illogical. But if you're not already an investor mentality, think of this as a technology. Like you could use social media to leverage yourself and get ahead. There's lots of platforms you could get paid to play video games these days. You could get paid to do some kind of basic copy pasting or downloading apps on your computer and using your computing power to help power certain networks that are relying on just people voluntarily using computing power to power it. You could start doing things and use the technology without having to become an investor mentality. And all of a sudden, if you work or you're unemployed, or you work for whatever, $100 a day, let's say, for the sake, keep it simple, and you find a way by just hitting some buttons to make an extra $1, $3, $5 a day, right? Without anything besides just your time, and you're just figuring out this new technology, that's the way to go about it. Because not everyone, you're right, it's a different mindset to be an investor, but to learn to use the technology and use it. It's like, imagine somebody was telling you about the internet and you never used it. Wouldn't it be a lot easier to use it and start making mistakes as you use it to understand it than try to read books or watch documentaries on what is the internet? Just use it.
Yeah, you just have to get into it.
And go use the technology.
Yeah, but you just have to get into it in moderation. Now, we talked a little bit about younger demographics. I know it's very popular, to go in the crypto space and the internet space in general. Sonia, when you look at where you would see most opportunities today for entrepreneurs, for women, for immigrant women, what would you say?
Look for something that you love. I mean, I in my case, when I got into my own business, I had always had this desire to travel. So it just seemed logical to go into the travel business. And being in that business, I saw opportunity. I'm a baby boomer, so I started my business in the 80s. And I saw what the travel industry was going to do. It was going to explode. So that was why I ended up getting into the travel business. And it was a fabulous business. I owned it for 25 years, loved what I did, made lots and lots of money. But that whole industry is slowly, it's not going to die, but the whole demographics of the travel industry is very, very different now. Yeah. And so I sold that business and wanted to find something else that was going to allow me to have maybe a little bit more free time to be able to help other people and to find a product that I knew people were looking for. And so I got into the health and wellness industry. Our products are good. They're healthy. They're really, really good for people. They're great for baby boomers. And
I was going to say that is the preferred industry for a lot of baby boomers and women. Women above 50 also.
Yes, we are looking for something to make us look younger.
Yeah.
But I find the younger people are also looking to I think the whole health initiative is becoming much more popular today than it was. And so I looked at this business, I tried these products, I loved them. But what got me was this business is e-commerce. And I think that's the way the business model should go. I was able to market my products on the internet. Mm-hmm. And that I felt was something. I mean, look at how e-commerce has grown massively. Even I think the statistics in the first 3 months of 2020, the e-commerce industry grew by more than what they were predicting in 10 years. So it was a business that I saw an opportunity for, and I jumped in, and I've never been happier. Mm-hmm.
Now, I want to switch gear here for a moment and talk a little bit about the correlation of entrepreneurial spirit and the freedom of society. Now, both of you come from a background of societies that I think it's fair to say have not always been classified as free societies, but now you live in a different society. So from where you stand today, would you say that if you have a society with a lot of free thinkers, entrepreneurial spirits that dare to do things, there is a different approach to freedom that we sort of enjoy as a society, as a collective, versus having been in a society where sort of when you get punished, like for example, I grew up on the border of East and West Germany. So when sometimes, in Eastern Germany, for example, entrepreneurial it was a state-driven economy. So it's not, you couldn't really decide anything for yourself. So to me, there are two different things. There is when you're entrepreneurial spirit, you make all the decisions, you don't follow someone else's script, you go after what you want, you can still have a purpose and follow and make sure it's for the social good, etc. But it's a different outline, basically, versus societies where when the state takes over, or the state has sort of the majority dictating of how they are, coming up with lots of rules and restrictions, that it also impacts society and brings entrepreneurship down? What is your take on that? Is there a correlation? How do you see it? Either one of you, whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, I think in general, most of taxation on business, in some scenarios, it may be logical, but especially when you start going around the world, there's a lot of businesses that get formed by entrepreneurs. There's no tax that exists the way they're doing it, and then they make it up as a form of extortion. So it's actually nothing positive most of the time coming from the state when it comes for entrepreneurs. We're providing jobs, we're providing this, and we take all the risk. As soon as we succeed, now we got to give you money. But if we have our failures, nobody helps us out. Right. So I think the point is to realize that we got to do this for ourselves. You can't rely on a friend, on a company, on a government, nothing. You are the currency. You are what's valuable. You got to raise your vibration, raise your value, raise your self-worth, raise your skills, learn to communicate or do something you love. Like this is the theme, I think, is find something you love. If you're not a person that likes speaking, maybe it's art, maybe it's music, maybe it's some kind of management that you never thought of. But there's something almost every human is going to be good at. And I think that don't rely on whether it be the state or a class or a school or a program or a certificate or even a mentor. You have to rely on yourself and use all these things as tools, as helpers. There's no one jack of the trade tool that's going to work for everyone. But if you gather your experiences from all these different angles, and if there is something good from the state, maybe there's a free course, maybe there's some, go take it, of course. But again, learn from many different sources and do. Don't just research, learn by doing. Of course, research, get mentors, that's all very important. And do something you love. And don't set fixed dates. The worst thing you can do is say, I need $5,000 from this business next Tuesday, or I'm a failure. If you start doing that, you're gonna get down on yourself very, very quickly. Just realize, have goals that are realistic. If you don't hit them, change your goals, change your strategy, but it's step by step, and it's all gonna come from you. At the end of the day, it's you that's going to take the action. No one's going to do it for you. And that's the great thing about entrepreneurship.
Yeah, and I think to me, you said something that I think is really a key in that. You rely on yourself versus expecting the state or the government to give you a check or to give you a handout or something else. But you also realize that you are all you need. And that's kind of like when you have that, you know, there's this big drive for purpose. Everybody wants to do something nowadays that has meaning to their work. So people more and more are getting away from jobs. They're quitting jobs that no longer have meanings. They don't want to go and work for companies that do stuff that they don't agree with, etc. So there is the quest for purpose on the one hand, but then if everyone has a unique purpose and a unique thing they resonate, but if you don't have the guts to bring that out and you rely on others, then that's an issue. So what would you say to people that are kind of in this predicament that say, I really would like to do something where I can bring out all that's in me and have that purpose, but at the same time, I'm kind of scared and I kind of believe in what government tells me? Because they're two different things. A free thinker, as an entrepreneur, you're self-reliant. You're going to focus on what you think is necessary and you bring out the creative juices to do what it takes, correct?
So I just find the right mentor in the right group. If someone like me seems too extreme and doesn't resonate with you, maybe your mentor should be like a politician or someone that's like a captain of industry. So just because that's not my dream life, maybe that's somebody else's perfect scenario, right? It's not the same kind of entrepreneurship as like we would consider. But if your goal is to it's kind of a sole entrepreneur to be a politician, right? You got to raise funds yourself. You got to know how to communicate, call people. It's not traditional entrepreneurship, but it's a lot more closer to entrepreneurship than going to work some job somewhere where you're told what to do, when to punch in, when to punch out. And again, a saying in the entrepreneur world for a long time, a job leaves you just over broke. They give you just enough. No matter what they pay you, you're going to spend a little bit less and you're not going to be broke, but you'll be just over broke. So all the people that's the real acronym for job out there.
Oh, that's a very fun way of saying it.
I've heard that one, just over broke. Yeah, my thought is, somebody living in a state society like Russia or, a communist country. I think there are people that have that drive and desire. They're maybe like the cream. They ride, they're not as many get to the top, but I think if they have that desire, I mean, there are many successful, people that still live in that kind of country. It just takes a little bit more. But, I'm a great believer that, to get out of that, you have to surround yourself with people that have the same drive and desire. They say, excuse me, you are the result of you are the result of the closest 5 people around you. So surround yourself with people who, can help you, can lift you up, can get you through to that. Why is it that everybody wants to come to the United States or to Canada? Because, that's where there is that possibility. And, and there is a better chance, if being around other successful entrepreneurs or successful people, or people who will mentor you and lift you up and help you to aspire to where you feel you should be.
Now, this automatic doer, I would call it this doer aspect that many entrepreneurs, all entrepreneurs actually have that. That's why I think many of the entrepreneurs or the small business owners were not so engaged in politics for a long time, because you focus on your business, you focus on your life, you focus on how do you keep it running, how do you keep the lights on, how do you actually do more than that, how do you grow, etc. So you're not so susceptible to watch and listen to all the things that were going on, except that now we're kind of at a point where it gets harder and harder to look away, and because it targets everyone, we're kind of confronted with that. But I think there's a difference for entrepreneurs or small business owners. They seem to be much more hands-on in making changes or in doing things than what we would see, for example, by people who worked in bureaucracy all their life, or for people who work for the government or federal, because they always get their steady paycheck. But when you compare those two mentalities, so there's the more hands-on entrepreneurs, and then there's the more looking at government and the steady paycheck and from the bureaucratic world. Where do you see this all fall in terms of how we go forward? Where we're right now, do we need more of the hands-on people, or do we need more of the taking the hand out people?
Definitely more of the hands-on people, the people that are reaching out for something else. Those are the people that are making the change. Those are the people that are making their voices heard, about making changes, say about, tax laws and employee rights and things like that. Somebody who takes charge can be the one to make the change. The person that the bureaucrat, the one that's just holding their hand out, as long as they get their paycheck and they go home and they're happy and they're not making waves, they're not, doing anything to make the change. But the people that, are the entrepreneurial spirit are the ones that are looking to change, not only for themselves, but the way their country is run, the way the policies are made. So I think that they are the change makers.
Peter, your take on that?
Yeah, so when it comes to entrepreneurship, and I think it comes down to just taking action more, right? It's not, I think the more technology we have to interact with each other, that's where it's really going to come in powerful and enlightenment. So I think also there's about 1 in 10,000 people, they say, whatever study you look at, that are leaders. So it's not like we're looking to change the 9,999 people. We need more of the 1 in 10,000 to step up and set a precedence of us working together, us becoming a trend of it's more natural to be an entrepreneur or soulpreneur, and it's kind of unusual to be a job. So there'd be more people that need to just step up and lead by example. So don't underestimate if you're just alone on an island as an entrepreneur, how much you're actually doing. You might not be seeing the lives directly of the people around you change instantly. Maybe it's their kids. Maybe it's an acquaintance you didn't realize. So I believe that the main thing is actually stepping up, and let's change the consciousness of what is the norm. Obviously, it's going to be difficult at other places than others, but we have this society, we need to change the way our schooling is to encourage more of these kind of ways of interacting instead of just showing up, memorizing. Memorizing is not efficient anymore. So it has to start from the schooling, it has to start from young mentorship, young education on different topics. Get people to sell or do something outside their comfort zone from young ages. So by the time they're in their mid-20s or in their mid-30s, it's their first time making a mistake in that kind of scenario. Now you're an adult and you're shy. It's a whole other process. So let's start it younger and let's just get more leaders and change the shift of what the normal is. Right now in North America, it seems normal to go to school, university, get a job. It's changing slowly, but that's still the narrative. So I think the narrative needs to switch, and that will happen by more people stepping up and doing it by example, living their best lives and genuinely being happy and not having anyone telling them what to do, living life on their terms.
Yeah, I think that's a really great idea, but how would we switch if we have such a complacent society and we're basically being part of the hamster wheel is right now still more rewarded than going out on your own? Because when you're an entrepreneur, it's almost at times a kamikaze mission to some degree to do this nowadays. So how would we make the shift?
Well, I think we have all the tools now. Right now, there's university courses online. There's all the smartest entrepreneurs giving you their tips. A lot of them, even if they have a paid course and you're in a bad financial place, if you get them on the phone somehow or one of their assistants explain your situation, I'm positive they'll give you a free course. And if not, that organization, another one will. So I think this is the time of, again, we have to switch it as individuals. And it's not that everyone's going to do it. We have the tools now via internet. We have access to this information. With the new technologies like Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, you can do international finances without having to have some kind of specific bank account or asking people permission. So it seems like it's so far away, but we need to not focus on the 9,999 people. That 1 in 10,000 more step up and make entrepreneurship a thing. It will switch itself. We can't expect the average person to start thinking like that, but if we make it a trend where this is the new cool, this is the new normal, this is the new form of success, instead of in shows and movies saying, hey, your kid should be a doctor or a lawyer, why not say your kid should be a business mogul, a giver, a for-profit enterprise leader? Like, these are the terminologies we've got to incorporate in our main culture and make this is what's cool, make this the new trend. And it's not going to be easy, but it happens by individuals stepping up, right? So you can't the hardest thing you could do is, as an entrepreneur my whole life, is convincing my friends that have entrepreneurial roots, and I see them do sales, and I know they can do it, but they just don't. And it's been 15 years and they're still working jobs. I have friends that are my age, I'm in my mid-30s, that have been working for 15 years. And from the first few years, I was like, hey, buddy, please, I'll help you finance it. Start off on your own. You can do the same thing. You can't change those people, but you can change yourself. Start with little habits. Organize your room. Start a little section as a business or an educational section. Like, do little things every day, because if you don't make changes, you're going to be in the exact same situation you are a year from now, 2 years from now, because you're doing the same habits. You're on autopilot. Make little changes, and don't underestimate how not that many of us making these little changes could actually change the norm. So sitting here, anyone watching this and listening this long, take action. Do something outside your comfort zone, or do something you love and do more of that. And naturally, things will just start changing for you, as opposed to going to the same places, doing the same things and the same habits. You got to make changes if you want things to happen differently in your life.
But your friends,
I agree.
You agree, Sonia?
And I think that, I mean, nobody, I don't think anybody is born a leader. I think it's something that we attain through a life experience, through, how we have grown up, our childhood. But I think anybody can be taught to be a leader. I think there are a lot of people that will be very happy working in a job for 40 years and retiring and living happily ever after. Those are the people that, a job is fine, but there are a lot of people that are doing those jobs that do want something else. And I think those people, what they need to do is surround themselves with leaders or with successful people. And I'm very much, I believe, we all need mentors. I think that, mentors can lift us up. And like I said, we are the result of the 5 people around us. And if everybody around you, if you stick to people or you gravitate towards successful people, it will bring that out in you. And you can attain that, that's what I think.
No, that's really interesting. But actually, so Peter, are there actually mentors in crypto where someone could basically learn to get their feet wet, so to speak, if they decided to go into that space?
My government name is Peter Ratnikov, Ratnikov. My personal phone number is 416-828-7706. That's also
there you go. You even got a personal phone number. How is that?
It's not just me. I mean, there's lots of us out there. There's a lot you have to look past and find someone. Even if I'm not the right connection, you find someone like me to refer you to the right place where someone matches your energy, because good goes with good. So there's a lot of scams, a lot of drama in the space, and you have to be able to have a little bit of wisdom. Maybe you attend an event and see who you connect with there. But there is tons of mentors, and there's tons of programs you can join that are working with young entrepreneurs, any entrepreneur, old, young, people that are helping people get enthusiastic about this new technology. Just like there was 20 years ago when the internet was being formed. We needed a lot more leaders to have platforms like this Zoom and all the technologies. It took more people, and it's out there. Just because it's not easy to find doesn't mean it's not there, and in massive abundance. Like I was just at a conference with 5,700 people, at least 10% of them would be willing to mentor someone. There's 500 mentors in one city alone, right? So they're out there. You just gotta go to the right places and find them.
Yeah, I would agree. I think mentoring also is important because it can walk you through the ups and downs. We talked a little bit at the beginning about there's also a spiritual journey that's actually involved when you go into entrepreneurship, because it's not linear going up. You're not going to be promoted. It's not just like in little increments, but it's going like this and this and this. There are ups and downs. And when you go through that, you get thrown back a lot to yourself. So thinking about that aspect, Peter and Sonia, that question goes to both of you. So when you look back on your spiritual development or development as a person, what were kind of the big moments for you in your entrepreneurial life where you would say that's a big spiritual turning point that kind of threw me back to myself?
Go ahead. Sorry.
So you go first. You go first.
In my case, it was wanting to help other people. It was, even in my travel business, when I would send somebody away and they would come back from an amazing vacation, that is a spiritual thing when you can come back rejuvenated and relaxed. Okay. My business now is all about helping other people. I can't be successful unless I help other people. Okay. And that was that whole journey, that whole spiritual thing about reaching out and wanting to take somebody by the hand and pull them up and make them as successful as I am. Yeah. That to me is pure success, really.
That is great.
I put my telephone number up if anybody wants it.
I'll put it up we'll put it up for the viewers to see it afterwards. Okay. So we're out of time almost. Peter, I'm going to give you the last word. Any last, very quickly, last word in terms of spiritual journey highlight, one thing?
Yeah, so why I think anyone that's considering being an entrepreneur, it's very important, is because we are the current, we are the energy. What makes me wealthy is not numbers in a screen. The numbers go up, the numbers go down. It doesn't change my happiness. I know you could leave me anywhere in the world in my underwear. I can't call my friends. I can't access accounts. In 3 years from today, I'll be richer than I am right now. So that's true wealth, and that's what you want to get to. An entrepreneur.
We love it. Thank you for both of you for coming on. Thank you for watching. I really wish you that spiritual currency to understand that you are the currency. And on that note, have a wonderful evening, and we see you next week. As always, you can find more information on my Twitter or Facebook. Have a good night.